There's nothing like watching a great movie on the big screen with an audience the way it was meant to be seen. The energy in the room is infectious. At Cowtown Movie Classics, we partner with the finest institutions in North Texas to bring you the glamour and thrills of old Hollywood with the proper historical context. Each screening features an all-new discussion with a world-class film historian, artist, or special guest, hosted by me, Ryan Bijan. We believe it's important to recognize how the icons and images of yesteryear inspire the entertainment of today. Cowtown Movie Classics. We make the old new.
Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ryan Bijan, host of Cowtown Movie Classics. And when we think of the great monsters of literature and folklore, of course, the first ones that come to mind, it's Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, and the werewolf. Now, I don't think any single film has done more for the reputation of the werewolf in popular culture than director George Wagner's The Wolfman from Universal Pictures in 1941, starring the legendary Claude Rains, Bela Lugosi, Evelyn Ankers, and in the film that really made him a household name in his own right, Lon Chaney Jr. as the eternally cursed Larry Talbot. Joining us tonight is film historian, raconteur, and horror expert, legendary horror expert, Mr. David Del Valle. How are you doing tonight, David?
Well, Happy New Year, since it's the first day of 2025. And what a good way to celebrate it with Universal's, big hit. The Wolfman was the final big three in Universal's horror legacy. The Wolfman was an enormous hit. And as you said, it made Lon Chaney Jr. a horror star. But the year before, Chaney did a movie called Man-Made Monster with Lionel Atwell. And that was his audition for The Wolfman. And it was based on a script that was originally put together for Karloff and Lugosi. Karloff was going to be Dan, the electrical man, and the doctor would, of course, be Bela Lugosi. And it would be kind of an interesting riff on their other pairing for The Invisible Ray, which came in 1936, which was really an early science fiction oriented movie for Universal. But in any case, Man-Made Monster was successful, and Chaney proved that he could carry a film, sort of. And so he was rewarded with The Wolfman. But I would like to point out that Bela Lugosi campaigned vigorously to play the Wolfman. And instead, he was given the role of Bela the Gypsy, who is the werewolf that passes the curse on to Lawrence Talbot. So if this movie had been done correctly, in my opinion, it would have been Bela Lugosi, Lon Chaney Jr., the two werewolves meet, and Bela passes it on to Lon, and they both have terrific makeups. But because Universal always treated Lugosi after Dracula, after the very early 30s. By 1936, Lugosi was definitely in the back seat to Karloff at Universal. So they rewarded him with Bela. But it's interesting when you watch this, that Bela, who bites Lon, is a wolf. He's a dog. In fact, he's Lon Chaney's German Shepherd. The German Shepherd that kills Bela and that Lon fights with is his own dog, who was like Henry Cavill and his dog. They were inseparable. So that dog, there are loads of pictures of the dog and Lon, even in his makeup, because the dog knew him through the makeup, didn't matter. So Lon was able to control that dog. And so Bela should have been made up like Lon. But they did not want to give Bela equal billing, and they should have. That's the mistake in this movie. Kurt Siodmak, who I did meet and who wrote a self-published book, Even a Man Who's Pure at Heart. Kurt Siodmak, that was actually the person that benefited the most, aside from Lon Chaney Jr., was Kurt Siodmak, whose brother Robert was a far, far more interesting, talented person. Son of Dracula, that was made after this, in my opinion, is actually a better movie. But the cast in The Wolfman is exemplary. George Wagner, who was a very astute producer, put together a great cast. Ralph Bellamy, who has nothing to do but keep his hands in his pocket. Warren William, who, why he is in this is just, he must have wanted to just hang out, because Warren William had played Caesar, and he was, Perry Mason, and he was a great actor, a great star. What's he doing in this, walking around? And Patrick Knowles, who wound up in the sequel, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, which is more fun in a way. And Lugosi is playing the monster, which is, of course, a whole other story. Poor Bela. He got that moniker because of a run of bad luck, really. He should have had a bigger part. Bela should have been built up, and it should have been more of a confrontation between the two werewolves, because Chaney's not very good in the romantic stuff. When he's trying to seduce Evelyn Ankers, she doesn't like him. She didn't like him in real life. And their love scenes are like, she can barely have him in front of her face, because he was incredibly rude to her husband, Richard Denning, who played he was the governor of Hawaii in Hawaii Five-0 for years. And the Evelyn and her husband, Richard, lived in Hawaii for most of in her retirement.
Well, Richard Denning, he was in Creature from the Black Lagoon.
That's right. No, they're all Universal stalwarts, all of them. But Chaney Jr. was alcoholic, and he was drunk during a lot of The Wolfman, I'm sorry to say. Evelyn Ankers, I'm not gossiping, I'm quoting Evelyn Ankers, who was on the set. There is a bit of controversy in the fact that there is a cut sequence that you can see in the beginning, in the trailer, of a bear, a 600-pound bear that the Wolfman fights, and actually scared Evelyn Ankers to the point that it chased her up a tree, and the electricians had to get her down. So there's a lot of interesting stories on the making of this. But let's watch it, and then we can talk more about the intricacies of what appeared on the screen and what didn't. And once again, why Chaney's performance is so iconic and legendary.
Absolutely. Well, David, thank you so much for your time. If you're in the audience, please stick around after the film so you can hear the rest of our conversation. Without further ado, from 1941, Lon Chaney Jr. is The Wolfman. So as we mentioned, this movie came out in 1941. It's a very late addition to what we know as the Universal Monsters, the horror cycle, essentially the 30s and 40s. So when you really think about it, this was by no means the first werewolf movie. It wasn't even the first Wolfman movie made by Universal. You had Werewolf of London in 1935. And yet, The Wolfman has really become the template. It's the blueprint for every subsequent werewolf movie ever made to this day. Why is that?
Well, I think that because first of all, it's a movie that if you see it when you're a child, it's unforgettable. And that's how I saw it. And I wanted to bring up that when Universal sold all their movies to like Shock Theater for TV, they would take a sequence to introduce Shock Theater. So you know what they would use to bring up the whole series? They would show the scene where the gravedigger is trying to bury, I don't know if they're trying to bury Bela, no, because they're burying someone. Mm-hmm. And he's transformed. So it opens with da-da-da-da-da, and then you see the Wolfman creeping through the forest. And then you see the gravedigger. The gravedigger looks up with his pipe and sees something in the background, but he can't quite make it out. Then when he sees what it is, he drops his pipe, and then the Wolfman attacks him. That's how they open Shock Theater. So before you ever saw any of them, you saw this sequence from the Wolfman as describing what is Universal horror. So I always interpreted the Wolfman as like the top drawer of the three monsters. The Wolfman, Dracula, and Frankenstein. The Mummy really didn't enter into it as much, even though the Karloff Mummy was pretty much a standalone classic. It was very much like a silent film. But The Werewolf of London was a very interesting movie because it created lycanthropy as something that you could achieve, that was from Tibet, and there was a plant that was an antidote for the serum that would turn you back into a human being, kind of taking the Jekyll and Hyde thing to another level, which is what the Wolfman is. It's basically Jekyll and Hyde with yak hair, because Jack Pierce famously created Chaney's look. But now, okay, let's talk about the Wolfman's costume. You have a picture of Lon Chaney Jr. from Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, where he's the Wolfman. And he is wearing a very nice pair of slacks, a very nice silk shirt, a nice leather belt, no shoes, because what shoes are going to fit those big feet? It's absurd. And it's why Warren Zevon was able to create such a great classic song with Werewolves of London, because at one point he said, I saw Lon Chaney Jr. walking with the Queen. His hair was perfect. And if you look at that photo I sent you, Chaney's hair is perfect. But it's ludicrous. If you're turning into a snarling animal, you're not going to wear street clothes, are you? And what happens to your shoes? Remember, in the movie, the first thing the transformation shows you, which was very cheap to do, was his feet. You see his feet, then you see the feet walking up, and that's probably not Chaney. It's probably a stand-in. And then the feet walk away in the slacks, and then he runs off into the woods, but he's still wearing human clothes, Well, I really don't understand how this got as iconic as it did, because if you look at subsequent werewolves, now 20th Century Fox did The Undying Monster a couple of years later, that had a very similar werewolf makeup, but it was Fox, so they didn't have Jack Pierce. And then the werewolf thing kind of went into, except for the Universal sequels to the Wolfman, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, in which Lawrence Talbot becomes a kind of really nagging, unhappy. Why am I want to die. Just let me die. And you kind of wish he would, because he's so depressing. But he's finally cured. And what's funny is the doctor cures him in House of Dracula, but in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, he's back to being a werewolf again. And he has that classic line to Lou Costello where he says, you know what? I turn into a wolf when the moon is full. And Lou Costello looks at him and says, yeah, you and 50 million other guys. So it became a joke by that point. But it's interesting that we're about to have a renaissance of all the classic monsters. We just had a reboot of Nosferatu, which was not very good, in my opinion. And they've tried to reboot The Invisible Man. And we did have a reboot of The Wolfman, which I think is pretty good.
I agree.
Except for the stuff in London where he's running around and it's awful, all that awful CGI, which ruined Van Helsing as well. Well, a lot of things ruined Van Helsing. Universal has not had very much luck with their dark universe, have they?
No, it doesn't look like it, but hey, they keep trying and trying again to reboot it. So,
well, they need a good script. I think that's what stops everybody cold. If it's not in the script, it's not on the screen, and that's just the way it is.
Well, I think the problem, and this is just my opinion. I know you weren't a fan of the latest Nosferatu, and I can certainly understand that. But what I think makes the new movie so successful is at least Nosferatu leans into the gothic horror element, where I feel like Universal, every time they try to reboot like The Invisible Man or Van Helsing or The Mummy, instead of making a gothic horror, they wanted to turn it into more of like a contemporary action film instead of horror. And I think maybe that's why.
You just cited the two. I mean, first of all, The Mummy remake, all the Brendan Fraser, which once again, they tried to make an action. They wanted Indiana Jones and a werewolf. That's what's wrong with the Brendan Fraser. What's wrong with the other Mummy with Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise.
Right.
Tom Cruise cannot. He did it with Mission Impossible. He hogs the screen, and he's an old man now, so he shouldn't do that. He's a 65-year-old man jumping off of planes. It's absurd. But the thing is, with The Mummy, it was too much of him. We get tired of it. We really
Yeah.
want to know more about Ankh Sonolman and Imhotep and the flashbacks beautifully done of the Egyptian stuff.
Hmm.
But as long as they keep trying to incorporate other genres into the horror genre, it'll never work.
Hmm.
You don't want an action film. You don't want a vanity film with some over egocentric actor. You want a movie that enhances the legend.
Well, let's say since the early 1990s, since Hollywood has been trying to revive these older properties and reinvent them and reimagine them, let's use Coppola's Dracula as an example, or Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, movies like that. Do you think any of them have been successful on
No,
some level?
no. And I'll tell you, Del Toro makes awful movies now in America. And I have to tell you, him remaking Frankenstein with all the money and talent he has, why don't these people show some imagination and do something original? We
Hmm.
don't need any. The new Nosferatu is utterly unnecessary. It's a remake of the Coppola Dracula. Dracula is not a love story, okay? He's a reanimated corpse that drinks blood. He does
Hmm.
not have a heart unless he eats it.
That's
So
true.
anytime you try and make I don't know if Eggers had an affair with Johnny Depp's daughter, but there's certainly no reason for her to hog the screen with her orgasms as much as she does. She's a singularly annoying actress with only two real. She's not very good. So why hire her unless you're involved with her or something?
Hmm.
Because she's not. People, let's face it, Ryan, we don't go to horror movies now to see movie stars. No one runs to a movie. Oh, I got to see the new Willem Dafoe movie. I don't think that's what happens. I don't think people go to see the new Del Toro movie. Benicio, I mean, not Guillermo.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I think movie stars are done with.
Well, that's what they say now with like the Marvel Studios formula. Chris Evans is not a movie star. Captain America is the movie star, right? It's the
Exactly.
IP. It's the
Henry
name.
Cavill is the closest thing to a Clark Gable movie star in today's market
Yeah.
because he's not saddled with Superman anymore.
Hmm.
And now, if Superman, the new one, fails, that's the end of it.
Hmm.
Because they put too much money. I just think people are bored with retreads.
Right.
I want to see something new. You know, Barbie proved to the entertainment industry that if you veer from formula, you can achieve great financial success.
Hmm.
We need more imagination, more people writing good scripts, and less people listening to corporate
Right.
because the fans don't like this stuff. A
Right.
number of people are writing really negative reviews of Nosferatu
Hmm.
because it's not a good movie.
So
And,
what do you think? What do you think the secret is? I mean, I agree with
well, I
you.
don't know that it's a secret. I just think that until people make movies for the right reasons, you have to make movies because you're passionate about them, because you love the art form. When you're trying to make a buck, you're not at your best.
Hmm.
And I think we're finding that out with these, all these movies that are. I mean, look what's happening with Netflix. Ryan Reynolds is not a movie star, not by a stretch. And yet people are spending a lot of money on Netflix putting him in movies. Same thing, Mark Wahlberg. No one goes to see his movies. Would you run out to, oh, Mark Wahlberg's made a new movie. You want to see it? No. They have a
Yeah.
shelf life and then it's over.
And what do you think we can do differently now? I agree. The quality of
Go
film.
back to original material. There
Mhm.
is a wealth of stories, public domain, with great horror writers, Algernon Blackwood, M.R. James. The list is long and it's free. So
Mhm.
let's stop remaking Jekyll and Hyde, Dracula, Frankenstein. Let's stop remake. They want to remake movies that were made 30 years ago because no one. Happy Gilmore's getting a sequel now that everybody's 100.
Mhm.
No one cares. You know,
Well, do you think it also has to do with the shifting demographics? Like people don't even go to the movies anymore. Ever since COVID, people are
no,
more
and people
comfortable
don't
at
read
home.
books anymore either. So
Right.
we have a world of TikTok and OnlyFans.
Hmm.
So
Exactly.
why don't we just make porn and be done with it? I mean,
Why
that's
not?
where we're heading. Let's just
Well, that's
let's
what
just
Nosferatu was.
Well, it was just a big bang, with an ugly man. If Jimmy Stewart was alive, he'd probably be playing Count Orlok now. Since he's such a sex god to somebody.
Yeah, to some people. But like with my mission with Cowtown Movie Classics, I really want to make these old Hollywood films accessible to a modern audience. That's why I think it's important to give them the historical context so they can have a frame of reference when they're
Yes,
watching it.
yes.
But is it even worth doing that? Because, like you said, film media literacy, book literacy, it's at an all-time low. Is it even worth appealing to the masses with these old Hollywood films?
Well, that's a good question. That's a question for the pyramids. I really don't know
Hmm.
because, and I'm saying this with a degree of sadness in a way, but I noticed at the end of the year they're naming the people that are historians and commentators and everything. When people like me are gone, I don't know how this period of time will be remembered.
Hmm.
I don't know if the history of the genre, I'm hoping it will. And I think that what makes me a little confident that it might survive is the fact that I've lived long enough to see all these movies that were so hard to find available online, available in physical media. As long as we keep physical media, as long as there's people your age doing this, there's hope.
Yeah, I
But
certainly hope
I'm
so.
not Nostradamus, so I don't know when David Del Valle and Tim Lucas and all these other people, and we already lost David Skull, who was really our Dracula expert. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's up to you and people younger than you to keep it going. And I
I
can
hope.
only be an example.
Well, I think what makes you such a insightful historian and what makes you an authority, as much as anyone can be an authority, is you actually met a lot of this talent when they were still around. So
Yes.
you did get to know Kurt Siodmak to a degree, and I know you have your opinions on him, but how did that come about? So for you in the
Well,
audience,
Ray Ferry,
yeah.
who was the editor, the final editor of Famous Monsters of Filmland, uh, was in correspondence with all the surviving. Ray used to comment on, he did a Famous Monsters convention where Ray Bradbury, Robert Bloch, Ray Harryhausen, uh, Gloria Stewart, Lon Chaney Jr., they were all there. Famous Monsters, which opened the door for all people my age to become monster kids. We owe Famous Monsters that. There are magazines are dead now. I mean, Fangoria is around, but barely.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. It's an interesting question. There may be a renaissance. I think there's a lot of talented people out there that we haven't heard from yet. I'm hoping the European contingent will open the doors for horror, for the genre. But the horror genre got trapped in the zeitgeist of slasher and serial killer movies. Torture porn is not horror.
Hmm.
Hostel is not a horror movie. There's nothing supernatural about it. It's about torture and human depravity. So that's a different kind of movie, don't you think? Is
No, I
Long Legs a horror movie? No,
yeah.
no. And it's not a good movie either.
All
But
right.
if you look, you got to watch out for Rotten Tomatoes because they give a lot of misinformation.
Well,
You know,
people
the
just
people that are telling people that Nosferatu is a masterpiece don't know what they're talking about.
So on that note, let's go back to the original Murnau Nosferatu, the original Universal horror series, the Hammer horror films. What is the appeal? Like, because even today, it may not be a huge number, but like you said, people my age and younger are still rediscovering the classics. I mean, what is the appeal of these original Gothic horror films?
Sex and death, sex and death, the marriage bed and the grave. That is exactly the quintessential essence of horror. It's what motivates Dracula. It's what motivates the mummy looking for his Ankhsenamen. Uh, Even the creature from the Black Lagoon. It's all about sex. Now, the new Nosferatu is all about sex, but in the wrong way. Reanimated corpses don't bang, okay? So, you've got to get that situation ironed out. The Murnau Nosferatu really was a comment about World War One and the fear of plague, and an enormous amount of anti-Semitic interpretation of Count Orlov. As a kind of stereotypical Jewish figure that brings famine, that brings vermin and plague into a city. That's what the first Nosferatu is about. Now, the Werner Herzog is a beautiful meditation on the original. This new one is not a meditation on anything. I mean, Miss Depp has an orgasm in the first 3 minutes of the movie, out in the lawn by herself, gyrating, what, up and down. What the hell is that?
Yeah.
I must say, though, I'm getting a big load, if you pardon the pun, of Nicholas Hoult. This man is in everything. I saw him in Jury 2. I saw him in Renfield. I saw him in Nosferatu. He's becoming very overexposed in these things, I think.
Well, he's the new Lex Luthor. I don't know if you saw that in the new Superman.
He's the new everything.
Yeah.
Is he that versatile, I wonder?
I don't know. He's a good actor.
He's a very good actor. I like him a lot. But, he's doing a lot of work.
Well, that's the problem with Hollywood today now. Like you said, there's no movie stars. Yeah, we're still seeing the same 2 or 3 people. It's Sydney Sweeney. It's Timothy Chalamet. It's the same group of 3 or 4, Austin Butler, right? Once they have one hit, they just keep putting them in everything.
All right.
What sticks.
All right. Eggers is remaking Labyrinth. Why? Why? It wasn't that good in the first place. Why are you doing that with all the money and talking about being a genre? I worship horror movies. Why are you making? Well, that's so stupid.
Yeah.
And they're remaking. They're remaking everything. Anything that was 30. I mean, the fact that all these so-called movie stars are trying to reboot movies they did 30 years ago says miles about what's going on. I mean, remaking a David Bowie flop.
Well, wouldn't you agree that isn't it a better idea if you're going to have to remake something? Isn't it better to remake the bad movies than the good ones? You don't need to remake.
No, I think you have a choice not to do any of the above.
That's
First
true.
of all, why be so stupid?
Yeah.
And who are you listening to? No one is asking for remakes.
The
only movies, in my opinion, that deserve remaking are the Hammer films that had bad special effects. The Devil Rides Out, the Quatermass films, Day of the Tributes. These movies could be remade, but we do need, really literate scripts.
Right. We don't have the Nigel Neals anymore. There's nobody of that caliber.
We don't have it in every. We don't have the. Look at musical theater in New York, the Broadway stage, because AIDS took away so many choreographers and playwrights. All the Broadway is readapting movies to plays with bad songs. And an exhausted, boring Andrew Lloyd Webber, and even Elton John, who's gone blind apparently, keeps trying to reboot things, and they last 5 performances on Broadway and they're gone.
I mean, well, we say this, but then look at the success of Wicked. It's the biggest movie of the year.
Well, don't look at me. Honest to God, all right. In the gay community, anything to do with the Wizard of Oz is sacrosanct, right?
Yeah, of course.
But Wicked, it's maybe even too gay for me. It may be so gay that I just can't bear to watch it because it's gay times 500 plus infinity. I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen it. Have you?
I did see. I'm a Wizard of Oz fan.
We all are. But I mean, did you feel like you were satisfied with it?
I was entertained, but then again, like I still love the Sam Raimi one. With James Franco? Did you ever see that one?
What?
So in 2013, Disney made a prequel called Oz, the Great and Powerful, and it's James Franco playing the young Wizard of Oz. It's kind of an origin story.
Well, that won't happen again. He's been canceled.
He has been canceled. So that's a Sam Raimi film, so I enjoyed the style.
I like Sam a lot. He's a very talented man, and Sam came to my house back in the 80s with Sheldon Lettich, who was working on all those Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. And Sam was just about, I think, to do the first Evil Dead. He's a huge Lovecraft fan and horror nerd.
Yeah, yeah.
But, Sam tried to do something interesting with Doctor Strange, and the powers above wouldn't let him. When you do those kind of movies, you're given perimeters in which you don't stray.
Of course,
So
yeah.
there's no imagination going to happen out of that if you're restricted in content. So I don't know. I think the future of horror lies in some enterprising person taking great Gothic stories and creating new movies.
Right. Well, that raises another question. You can have the most brilliant artist with a singular vision, a guy like Sam Raimi, someone who's very creative and resourceful. But right, once you put him in that studio system, the money men aren't going to let them have free reign and do what they want to do. So, like, where's the hope for creativity in film?
Well, maybe it'll come from cable, because I do believe that a lot of the really great acting and writing is on cable. Look at shows like Mad Men, Breaking Bad, True Detective, the first season. The writing and acting on that surpassed anything in current cinema. So that's our hope, is that the A24s and the Netflix and all that, they will eventually come around and make some good content.
Hopefully.
In my lifetime, I hope.
Yeah. So we're watching The Wolfman. Here we are. What is it? 85 years later, 84 years later. Does it hold up? I mean, what are your opinions on this film? Obviously, it's a film that we grew up with.
It is what it is. I mean, as a little kid, I loved it. As an adult, I see, Chaney's not very good as an actor. The love scenes are very awkward. The monster scenes are interesting. The best performances in the movie belong to Claude Rains and Bela Lugosi. Everyone else is walking through it, except Maria Ouspenskaya. But Madame Maria Ouspenskaya, what a character. She looked like a little chimpanzee, with a hood. But I mean, honestly, she and Helen Hayes have very, simmering looks. Let's put it that way. The first lady of the American theater. But Maria was quite a character, and Oscar nominated. She elevated everything she was in. She's in a wonderful Lucille Ball movie called Dance Girl Dance, directed by Dorothy Asner. And but Maria walks away with this movie. It's so funny though that she's more interested in. She never goes to see where her son is. There's a lot of things. Bela is given such a short shrift in this movie. The minute they discover Lon, they don't even go about, and that Lon beat this dog to death, his dog, with a silver cane. Because if you notice in the Wolfman, silver bullets haven't been introduced yet. That won't happen until Meets the Wolfman, I guess. Or House of Frankenstein. I don't remember silver bullets until way into the franchise.
So correct me if I'm mistaken. So in Werewolf of London, he just gets shot by a regular bullet, right? Because at the end, I know he gets shot, but I guess it's just a regular.
There was not. Well, the Werewolf of London strays into botany. Dr. Glendon is a botanist, and the Maripisa lupina bedema is the plant that both Dr. Yogami and Dr. Glendon are trying to get to bring them back to normal, whatever that is. But yeah, Dr. Glendon's a very sexless character in Werewolf of London. His wife, he doesn't have any use for. He's too busy traveling with his young companion.
And hooking up with
There's
Japanese
a kind of homoeroticism in that somewhere,
Yeah.
But no, the Wolfman it is what it is. It's a classic. But if you look at it too closely, you do see the flaws, which are just there.
But it certainly does a wonderful job, I think, laying the groundwork for the Universal horror era of the 1940s, right?
Well, it really laid the groundwork for Val Lewton to come up with Cat People, which was superior in every way to the Wolfman. And the reason for that is Irena only changes into a panther when she's sexually aroused. You know, arousing Lon Chaney Jr. and the Wolfman, I don't know what you would get. But it might be fun to watch. I don't know, you know.
Right. Well, actually, going back to the transformation scene, I mean, I know you mentioned how ludicrous it is that the Wolfman goes out in a nice dress shirt and slacks. But if you remember in the transformation scene, Lon Chaney Jr. is wearing a tank top as he's transforming, which means the Wolfman, after changing, had to go out of his way. He had to go into the closet, get his nice button down shirt, and get dressed before going out.
Wow, it puts a new phrase on coming in and out of the closet, doesn't it? I mean,
Apparently.
apparently. Well, you know, there's a lot I could. I'll tell you one thing. I'm friends with the grandson of Chaney Jr., Ron Chaney, and Ron Chaney lives in Palm Springs. A very nice guy, very into keeping the legacy of the Cheneys alive. And there is a book that I need to mention that has not been finished from the Chaney family that started with Lon Jr., called A Century of Cheneys. And
Mm-hmm.
in this book, which has been handed down from grandfather to grandson, I've looked at part of it, and it needs, you know, it needs an editor. But it needs to come out while the Chaney brothers are still alive. You know,
Mm-hmm.
this Ron and Gary. But I don't know why it's not completed. But I'll have to ask Ron about it. Maybe we can get Ron to come on and we can do Son of Dracula together. Because Ron gets very emotional talking about Gramps, his grandfather. Because,
Mm-hmm.
you know, unlike the other kids, Sarah Karloff in particular, Bela Jr. not so much. Bela Jr. knew his father really well. Sarah Karloff was boarded off. She really only came into her father's life when he was very old.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they don't really know about the early years. You know, at least Bela Jr. was a baby during Son of Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah Karloff didn't happen until after Isle of the Dead, so she's lucky she didn't wind up in Voodoo Island, as far as I'm concerned. But
Yeah.
yeah, you know, some of the kids, Fairweather, though they be, they're all making money.
Yeah,
And you
but
know,
Ron
Bela
cares.
Jr. was he was a lawyer,
Yeah.
copyright lawyer. So he stepped in, and Universal at one point decided to do just generic monsters and not have to pay the kids anything.
Mm-hmm.
But as you've shown me, Chaney Jr.'s image is on all those things behind you.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you know they have to pay the family.
And rightfully so.
And
Yeah.
rightfully so.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. So the legacy, Ryan, is in the hands of us. People that watch your show, people that go to see these movies, even though they could see them on TV or online or on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
We're in an era where how can you enjoy a movie on your phone?
Yeah. No idea. I'm not one of those people.
Well, no, even though the phones are getting bigger, you know,
Well, look
you can no
behind you. I
longer
mean,
put them in your pocket. That's for sure.
right. Well, look behind you. We're so spoiled now. We have these amazing big screen TVs, 4K televisions. You can watch movies in better quality than they've
I
ever.
know. Well, I have a 70-inch screen right now, but it's
Yeah.
not 4K. I'm sorry to say.
Okay.
I
Well, that's
haven't
all right.
seen anything. Do you have a 4K player in the screen yet?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you do now. The Universal just put out in 4K with a new
Mm-hmm.
cover all the mummies except the first one.
Mm-hmm.
All the Chaney Jr. mummies are in this cat. Have you seen it? It's
Um,
$80.
I've seen. I know what you're talking about. I don't have that version yet. No.
How is it different from the Blu-ray Universal put out of all the mummies? Is it?
That's a good question. Since I haven't seen that version, I don't know. But I know when Universal's done the 4K restorations of like the big eight, right? The Dracula, Frankenstein, Creature from the Black Lagoon. They look amazing. They look incredible. But I think definitely it's the color movies. So like Phantom of the Opera, The Wizard of Oz. These are the movies that really pop when it comes to the 4K technology, I think.
Well, yeah. I mean, everything. I have a lot of 4K. But you know, you have to get the player as well,
Mm-hmm.
isn't it? It was kind of like 3D. Now
Yeah.
I just got the Warhol Frankenstein in 3D, which you can look at with your glasses.
Do you have a 3D TV?
No,
No. Yeah.
you don't need it. No, Bawana Devil and Warhol's Frankenstein come with glasses,
Mm-hmm.
so you just watch the 3D version and put on your glasses. And they look
Right.
fine. I think, well, what happened to plasma televisions?
I
Remember
mean,
when people bought those?
right. Well, you know, the
I saw a
technology
bunch of them
evolved.
out here on the street. After Christmas, all these big screen TVs that play out are laying with the mattresses out in front of your door.
You know what's crazy now? We've gotten into the point, when it comes to like people are nostalgic about physical media, and we are in a golden age of physical media when it comes to Blu-rays, DVDs, 4K, you name it. But now we have people going back and collecting VHS, and those big old CRT TVs, like the big chunky TVs. Now people are asking crazy money for those. 5 years ago, you couldn't give them away, but now it's like records and vinyl. Everything is coming back.
Right. I don't think we're going to see a resurgence of tape decks or
Yeah.
uh, laser discs.
You never know, but they just put out a VHS of Alien Romulus. I don't know if you heard about that.
I
So
know, but I have
crazy.
no interest in any more alien movies.
Yeah.
Do you? I mean, is there anything left to say?
I think they should have stopped after the original. I love the
Oh, I
original
agree.
Alien. But I am a fan of the Ridley Scott ones. I liked Alien Covenant. I thought Michael Fassbender was great. So
Yeah, well, I like him too. Well, that was Prometheus, wasn't it?
yeah, Prometheus, Alien Covenant. Had they gone in that direction, I would have been more interested. But the new one, it was okay. It just didn't need to be made.
Take the money and make something new.
Right.
You're gonna. When will? I don't know. I mean, people are eventually going to realize. I wish Francis Coppola, who started out Dementia 13, working for Corman, when he had $150 million at his disposal, he could have made 10 movies, 10
Yeah.
cute, 10 brilliant little masterpieces. But everybody gets crazy.
Well, say what you will about Megalopolis. At least it was an original idea from
It
him.
was an original idea
Yeah.
originally.
Sure. Yeah.
He's an old man now. He's just like, Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. We're just trying to create a masterpiece out of that.
Yeah.
Old men trying to talk about sex. This is where it all goes crazy.
Exactly. So, David, before we close out, when we think about the Wolfman, you mentioned the Cat People, the Val Lewton catalog. What do you think for our audience watching this? What are some of the great horror movies of the 1940s that you would recommend?
Well, The Wolfman, Son of Dracula, Cat People, The Body Snatcher, Isle of the Dead, The Leopard Man, those are Lewton's, The Undying Monster, Night Monster. There's a long, long list. The 40s had a lot of, and of course, remember, the 40s also opened the door for film noir.
Right. So you have The Lodger, which is kind of the
The
crossroads.
Lodger, Hangover Square,
Yeah.
the two John Brahms. He also did The Undying Monster, another werewolf movie. Yeah, there's a list. I would say there's at least 50 great movies in the 50s for horror, 40s for horror. 50s, not so much.
Yeah. Well, the 50s kind of went off in a different direction with
Well,
the
the
science
50s
fiction.
introduced insect fear films and atomic bomb, conspiracy movies.
Right. And then until Hammer would kind of bring it all full circle with
Hammer and Italy. Remember, 1960 is a benchmark year for horror because you have Black Sunday, Mask of the Demon from Italy, El Vampiro from Mexico, Horror of Dracula from England, and of course, Edgar Allan Poe with Roger Corman, House of Usher. 1960 was an incredible year for horror.
Right. The
Also,
Gothic revival.
Psycho, which changed the landscape of movies. But unfortunately, opened the door for serial killer movies too.
That's true. I mean, really, the slasher genre would not exist had it not been for the success of Psycho.
Absolutely, you're completely right.
So, David, do you have any closing thoughts on the Wolfman?
Well, my closing thoughts is we got to find some shoes for this guy. He and Paula, the ape woman from Captive Wild Woman, are walking around our city streets with just their paws. Isn't there a nice werewolf boot we can get? No, of all that, it's the movie has great charm. It's a classic. You get older, you get a little bit, maybe a little out of sorts with it all because the movies don't get more modern as you get older. You have to realize that, of course. And so for its period, for what it is, it's an enjoyable, marvelous kind of cinema experience. If you go into it and have no preconceived notions, you will enjoy it. But as with most horror movies, don't look too close or you will see a number of very Swiss cheese like holes in all these movies. But aside from that, that's why we love them, isn't it?
Right. Remember, kids, if you're cold, they're cold. Get the Wolfman some shoes.
Please get that boy some loafers.
Awesome. Well, David Del Valle, as always, it's always a pleasure hearing from you. Thank you again.
Oh, my pleasure. We'll talk soon.
We will. If you're in the audience, I hope you enjoyed tonight's conversation as much as we had having it. Once again, I'm Ryan Bijan. We'll see you next time. Beware the moon.